Okay, we're recording. So I'll just give a bit of introduction for those that have not followed the journey we've been on with this unlimited supply group. And just for those that are listening, it's I chip in if you can think of other parts of the journey I've forgotten, because it's been going on for quite a few months now, that we seem to be led to convert our mountains, or first of all bring our mountains to Zion, and then convert away from looking at the negative to the positive, and framing up words that describe really characteristics in New Jerusalem. And it's quite surprised me, it's quite shocked me actually, of how fast we've been asked to move and how big we've been called to create huge values that actually sum up a lot of the domain groups that we were doing, which in the end I was starting to get really overwhelmed. I had about 7 or 8 and I was going to them, and I was like doing like 4 or 5 encounters a week, and I was like, how can I cope with this? And funny enough, it all just started to merge, and it was like each mountain was going higher and higher up the mountain and converging into 1 or 2 words, and that one of those words is unlimited supply, which actually can cover all sorts of things. Like, we started off with a trafficking group, and then we could see that being unlimited supply of justice, and justice was the key thing with the trafficking problem, because there was just so much injustice. And then we had a poverty group, and we're looking at things like homelessness, and that again, we saw then that could be turned into just unlimited supply of whatever we need, not necessarily money, but just things like homes, or wherever we really are people are in a dire need. And the same happened with health, and that was strange. That I was battling for ages. Where do we start? There's so many issues. You could go backwards so much. I mean, you could have spent years just going into the mobile court of accusation, for dealing with every accusation for every disease that exists. But every encounter we were taking higher and higher, and then there was we were reframing it into bigger and bigger concepts. So now we're on to calling it complete health, and not even, that's right, we were going in for no pain, because you can see that in New Jerusalem, Revelations 21, there's no suffering. So what I was shown was we've got to start thinking in terms of the positive words, because the moment we think of the negative words, we're framing up the enemy, and also dealing with unfamiliar spirits. So the other change I've done now is not engaging familiar spirits anymore, but going higher up the mountain, creating on Zion, and then ruling over those positive things that we're creating. And actually then we're operating in the age of new beginnings. And what's interesting is then I've just had this further revelation about when you've actually done a lot of creating and ruling lower down the mountain on Zion, and you learn ways in which you rule, then you can go into the age of Zion and you rule over what you've created in the age of new beginnings. And I've started to see new ways of doing that and coming down as the New Jerusalem. So it's been this incredible journey that's it's just blown me away, really, and the speed at which it's gone at is quite amazing. But I've also had revelation about that, because I think actually we were meant to be there a lot quicker than we think we were. So I don't see anymore this journey of 2 years learning the mobile core, or even 2 years before you ever go into an encounter, learning all the stuff about heaven. Then you go into an encounter, and then you deal with stuff in the mobile court for a few years and clear out all your mountains, and then you move on to something a little bit bigger. And I've actually seen that we were really meant to catapult high up to these ages. We can actually come back down. That's the good thing. If we feel a bit insecure, I do this a lot. I go, oh, this is too big. This is, I'm not up to this. So I'll just go straight back to the mobile court, and I'll go back to what I'm used to, and so I'm actually seeing we can move in and out of ages, and that's okay as we grow in authority. But hopefully that's helpful for people who've missed the journey and of where we're going with all this, and why we've ended up talking about these unusual concepts like unlimited supply. Well, we should probably get into the encounter, unless anyone's got anything they wanted to say before we start.
I don't.
No, you're all good. I hope that makes sense. If you haven't been part of it, does that, like Colleen, to you, can you kind of grasp roughly what we're doing?
Yeah, actually, I'm kind of on a parallel thing, and I'm glad you were talking about new beginnings, because what's been kind of churning in me is, and I mentioned it on one of the, I think, Emerging Kings, about moving beyond the aligning of body and soul and spirit into abiding in that. Like, what happens in the night, that we have to redo it again the next morning. It doesn't magically unaligne if we're aligning at one day, that we have to keep doing it, because then it becomes a ritual. So I'm trying to work with Holy Spirit, and I'm getting a concept of the new beginning of living out of that 24/7. I've just been thinking today about how we live on earth, which is out of our body and with our soul, but inside our spirit. And our spirit is there all along. Our Father keeps it there. He watches over the spirit. He helps us to have it slowly awakened until the point when we're born again. And then it becomes fully activated, and then we start to experience him in our spirit, and sensing him for our soul, and then manifesting that out, whether it's responses to his presence, or releasing his healing, or whatever. But all along he kept our soul, our spirit, he kept it functioning there, protected within our body until a point in time. So in the reverse of that, and I was just thinking about, I think Paul wrote that the most vulnerable parts of the body are clothed, or they're protected, because they are vulnerable. And so I was just kind of meditating on that today, and I was thinking in reverse, that the new creation being that we are, which is spirit, inside, just like we had that spirit in our spinal column, as Ian teaches, inside our spirit and inside our soul, our body should be able to be kept 24/7, that we live out of the spirit. Our body is that vulnerable part that's vulnerable to disease, to things happening. But if it's encased now in our spirit, isn't God able to protect it within our soul and spirit, just as he protected our spirit within our soul and body, and keep it alive, and keep it healthy? So where I'm going in this is living in that alignment where his complete health, his unlimited supply of health is available to restore and heal and bring our bodies into that perfectness, that perfect alignment within our soul, within our spirit. Am I explaining that so that it gets outside of my head and out there where you can see it?
I'm 100% with what you just said. I never heard it spoken before, but it makes complete sense.
Well, and just as we trust, like before our spirit man came alive, we didn't know it was there, but he kept it alive. He kept it able to be awakened and united with him. And we've been on this path of, I think ever since John G. Lake spoke at 100% consecration, 100% union, that's been the track that I've been on. And so we should be able to trust and accept and believe that he is able to keep our body intact and healthy and awakened, just as he did our spirit. That as we continue to live out of spirit first, he's able to keep that alignment and bring it to perfection without, just as we did nothing to make our spirit man come alive except say yes to Jesus, that he's able to bring our body into full completeness and perfection within our spirit in the same way.
Yeah, what you're describing might be a different way of describing what we're saying around our personal and our kingly mountains combining more and more as we go higher and up the mountain. So we end up ruling over all sorts of things in one go, rather than every minute detail we go in and, I have to rule over this thing, I have to rule over that.
Yeah.
Well, and what I'm doing a lot now is just putting angels there. Once I've dealt with it quite a bit, saying, you're to then rule. If I'm starting to feel a bit overwhelmed with a lot of that.
Right. Well, and the last time, or the time that I, Father invited me up to his bench when I was dealing with personal issues in the court of accusation. He invited me up to judge them, and I got to bang his gavel and bring judgment. And when I went to my mountain that time, I wrote about that. When I went to my mountain, I just went to go to the top, but it's like I became the mountain, and my shoulders, it was very verdant and green, and the grass was just blowing in the wind, and the grass was all the way up the mountain. And I went to rule, to sit on my throne, but I just ended up becoming the mountain.
Oh, wow.
And I haven't moved since that spot. It's just, and so that's the whole thing about, having spirit outside the soul and the body and just living from there.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. I think that's awesome. Becoming the mountain. What did that feel like?
Well, it was kind of neat. Like I felt like I had these, my head stuck through. It was like I had a grass coat on.
Yeah.
Well, when I left the bench after judging, I felt really big. I felt really tall and really full of authority. And when I went to the mountain, it was just there. I had taken authority over all kinds of personal issues and family issues, and it didn't seem unusual. I was a bit surprised, but it didn't seem unusual. Oh yeah, well, I can see becoming my mountain, because that's what our mountains symbolize, right? They symbolize our lives.
Yeah, and it probably just shows you're so integrated in ruling that's why you're becoming part of the mountain.
Well, it's just a reflection. It's like, he doesn't need the courts. He set the courts up for us so that we could grow and we could see his dominion. And I mean, he knows he has complete authority over the enemy, but he shows us just how much authority he has each time we go, or we take someone, or we teach someone. And so as the courts aren't for him, our mountains, they're for us to deal with, but at some point it all converges, like you were talking about. In that new creation, there are no streams, there's nothing outside. It's all integrated. It's integrated to the basic prime number, to the easiest
Yeah,
denominator.
yeah.
Us being whatever it is that we've been doing, that is being incorporated into our life. I mean, I can't see Jesus walking around and spending his night seasons. I mean, he might have, but going to court and battling and going and I think his life and his authority was much simpler here. And what has kind of led me to that, and there's certain dreams and things that you encounter that are like your touchstones, and the one that I encountered, I keep going back to, and when things get too complicated, I turn around and try to see it simpler. I was like in this wife swap situation, where a mom from one family goes to another, and you see that TV show. And by the time I got to where I was supposed to be, I was shown this awesome old luxury model Jeep, and it was on a flatbed truck parked in a farmyard. And the husband was kind of, I was thinking, is this Jesus? Like, he had a baseball cap on. He's kind of scrawny, but he wasn't very happy, kind of solemn. And I'm thinking, well, it could be Jesus, And anyway, I jumped up in this Jeep, and because I was invited in, do you want to see how it works? And when I opened the door and crawled in, the seat just hugged me. It was leather. It creaked when I moved. It hugged my body. The dashboard was like an airplane cockpit. There were dials everywhere. There were all kinds of things to read. And I'm sitting there, and my soul, my mind is going, wow, this is so awesome. Oh, I really want to know how this works. And when I came back down, jumped off the flatbed, I looked, and the scrawny fellow there with a baseball cap, his wife was there. And I thought, oh, that's kind of weird. And she didn't really want me there at all. She was very dour. And I looked out of the corner of my eye, and the road in front of the farm, I saw a tractor going backwards. And when I looked, I recognized the real Jesus, and he was driving away. And I had this, the pull to all of this complicated dashboard. And it really, really appealed to my desire to know and understand. But then I turned around and I looked at him, and I ran. I just ran after the tractor. And finally I was waving my arms, and he kept going backwards. And finally he stopped, and I just looked up at him, and I said, are you ready? Like, are you willing to take me back? That was my response. And he said, in 3 months. And then that was like 3 years ago or something like that I had that dream. And I keep going back to it because sometimes the complicated way is still opposite to him driving backwards down the road. The simplicity of just jumping on the back of a tractor and let him drive. And he knows perfectly where he's taken me. And I don't have to, even though it appeals to my senses, to learn all kinds of things and to know. And I really love deciphering dreams and, digging into that stuff. I really love it. But if it's a choice, I'm going to jump on the tractor. And so to me, living out of spirit, learning, having him show me how to do that 24/7, and everything else being incorporated into that and flowing out of that, whether I understand it or not, it doesn't really matter at this point. I just want to be on the back of the tractor.
That's an expression of eating from the tree of life that Colleen is talking about. Would you say that, Colleen?
Well, that's part of it. I mean, living out of the spirit is living out of the river, is living out of sitting on your throne in the New Jerusalem. Like, it's all connected. It's like Jane was saying about no streams.
Mm-hmm.
It's all flowing from the same place. So it's all bits and pieces of the whole, but not to be looked at as bits and pieces of the whole, but looked at as the whole.
Yeah, I see exactly where you're coming from. And hopefully this experience what we'll do today, just going to Zion, will help people understand if they're still sort of at the just going to the various courts. You'll see the difference of just ruling. Well, shall we just get into the encounter? And what I'll do is start at. I'll explain it when I've said the bit. Hang on, let me find my thing. Okay, so let's just enter in, and remember we're all equal priests, so we can all contribute to the facilitation of this group, and we don't need a leader. Anyone can jump in as they see we need to move forward with anything. So don't be afraid of silence, or if you see something different, just share that. We don't be afraid to say you're seeing something different. But let's try and stay together and honor everyone's contribution. So let's just take a moment to step through Jesus, the door. We go through Jesus and enter to the Holy of Holies through the veil of life. So we go beyond the inner court to the most holy of intimate place. And let's just engage all those heavenly hosts that are there wanting to assist us now. And we greet and honor you. We invite you to give us great wisdom and lead us now. Seven spirits, angels, our men in white linen assigned to this issue, we invite you. Wisdom, we invite you. And we just go through the blood and we put our body and our soul under our spirit and just come as a living sacrifice. Let's open our door of first love and just feel that flooding in of heaven into our spirit, that we might see. And as we just get ready now, we're just going to go higher and higher up the mountain. And we're going to set our heart and our intent on going to Mount Zion in the age of rest, and looking at that we're seated next to the Father, and there's the Father, there's Jesus on the right hand of the Father, and then there's us on the right hand of that, sitting on our thrones on Zion, on God's mountain, and we're looking at this unlimited supply mountain and what it means in terms of everything that's in Revelations 21 and the New Jerusalem. So we're just staring out at that mountain and just asking what's there. What do we need to rule over? What do maybe create? Maybe or just see the heavenly blueprint from that mountain, the bigger picture from that higher place. And just ask is there any element of unlimited supply that we need to deal with today to bring that? It could be in any area, so don't feel restricted that it has to be under one domain issue. It could be health, trafficking, poverty areas, family areas. anything really.
While you were talking, Jane, I was seeing like strands of cloth, not strands of cloth, strands of the threads that make up cloth, all lined up together and coming over like a roller and then going down, and then that all turned into like a waterfall. So that by the end, what I was seeing was a waterfall with abundant water flowing over it. And now it's back to kind of like a spool of thread, but it's like water flowing between the spool, like you would have on a sewing machine. So somehow it has something to do with abundant water and the makings of cloth.
That's interesting.
I'm seeing streams of people coming to the mountain.
Mm.
And I think I even see like a light too, that they're coming to the light, and they're coming to the mountain as well, because everything they need is there. That's what I'm seeing.
I'm just seeing the goodness of God, just the goodness of Him. He's so good. Yeah, I sense that that's like the avenue in a way to experiencing the unlimitedness of who He is to know His goodness, to know His nature of goodness. And I'm also sensing that when there's doctrines or misunderstandings of His goodness, it's frustrating the unlimitedness of the reality of who we are and where we are and what is, everything about heaven and everything that's ours, living in the never-ending supply and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm really resonating with that, Michelle.
Well, and that makes sense too, that it's His goodness, because it's His goodness that leads us to repentance, where we are blocked from knowing it because of those doctrines or unbelief or wounds or whatever. That's the key that unlocks and brings healing and the ability to then begin to see His goodness. So it makes sense that that's behind everything. It's, wound with the gold threads of His love and His peace and all the things that we need to even come to Him and to repent and to change and believe and receive.
So I'm seeing how all those three things that you just said The making of cloth, the waterfall, streams of people coming to the mountain, and God's goodness. I'm seeing a mandate or how they're all linked. How do I describe this? I see streams of people coming up the mountain being called to weave together the threads of a cloth or a fabric which represents a new what's the word, way of operation, to bring forth that unlimited supply of God's goodness that flows over like a waterfall from heaven down to earth.
Can I add to that, Jane?
Do.
What was striking me as Bill was talking was that God, the master weaver, our Father, who knows all of our needs before we even come, begins weaving whatever answer to whatever need it is that we have. And that turns into this river, this waterfall of life. Maybe water being the total. We need water to survive. It's one of the utmost things that we need down here. And then that drawing the people up, the thirst, the need, people coming up the mountain, but the supply is already, it's already been created there. Whether they see it or not, his goodness has provided every single unlimited supply of mankind that's ever necessary. And so we come up and learn from his goodness. Even that is the pathway to be able to receive it through repentance, or those who don't need the repentance, they just come up to receive it. It's all coming from his goodness, and it's all flowing to us from that freely. But whatever it is that we need, he's already created it. It's already there.
The supply is in process of creation. It meets the people as they come up the mountain. The supply is coming down from heaven.
Holy.
Supply meets the people at the spot that they are, at the actual thing that they need. It's that need at that point. Now it's that supply for that need. And that is the goodness of God being displayed right there on the top of Mount Zion.
Awesome.
Can I add something?
Yeah, of course. Sorry.
When Mr. Bill was talking about the weaving, or I'm sorry if I'm not saying it right, but before we had ascended, I know what I'm about to say sounds very strange. It felt like the cloth of the covenant was Zion, and I know Zion is the place, but I keep on. It feels like a mantle is being given, like a mantle of Zion to reproduce Zion, and I sense that we have the DNA of Zion flowing through us right now. Remember, like, I feel the DNA of Zion flowing through us, because God was revealing to me that we are children of, Abraham and Sarah in the book of Galatians, the children of the free woman, and she was likened to Mount Zion, Sarah, and I feel like that DNA is actually flowing through us. I just starting to overwhelm me right now, but I don't know if I want to cry or laugh, but it feels like Zion's flowing through us right now.
Woohoo, that's really exciting. Oh, I'm so echoing with that mantle of Zion. Yeah, Zion, to reproduce Zion. Wow, that is awesome.
What Eric said about the DNA of Zion being in us goes back to exactly what Colleen was saying at the beginning before we turned this recorder on about becoming the mountain.
Mm-hmm.
And that complete unity with Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, spirit, soul, and body, and becoming the mountain.
Oh, yes.
All
Yeah.
ties together, and it is all one complete picture from everything he's shown us in the dialogue that we had before we had the ascension and the ascension and together. It's all one picture that he's shown us.
That is so true. That is really exciting. Because I'm getting this, I shared it last week, I'm getting this repeated experience that I feel like it's almost what you've described. I feel like I'm under this waterfall or a stream, and I'm just standing there and it's pouring into me. And it's just like all I've got to do is be under this. It wasn't really, I didn't see it as a waterfall, more of like a stream of like a river. But it was quite narrow, so I could almost drink it. It wasn't like being under a waterfall, and it went everywhere on the outside. It was really like going in me. And I had to just be there and just drink and drink and drink. And then I asked, why am I having this? Oh, I got an answer. What was it? Oh, yeah, I was told because I had rooted myself as a tree arcing over the river, so the constant supply was happening. There was this transference, this like a blood circulation thing going on between the two trees, that was causing this constant flow. I could receive this constant flow from heaven now because I'd moved to that position. So I think it's kind of like summarizing what we're saying here as well, because it probably is another way of saying that I'm taking on the DNA of God's mountain, because there's this permanent flow happening now.
Yeah, and I'm just seeing this waterfall. It's more like a semicircle, or maybe even more like going down a drain into us. Yeah, a lot of water. Oh.
I just wanted to say, Gene, I saw a connection between that river and the river between the two trees as well. So that was a confirmation for me.
So do we feel in agreement then that that's kind of the mandate for today, that we're to call to reproduce Zion, so almost take on the DNA of Zion for the ecclesia and ourselves personally?
That mantle has to be in there somewhere too, though.
Or to know, like, to live in that reality.
Yeah.
That it's to be, that it's not, that's all supply seated beside him, where the source for everything comes, that all supply for everything is available, and it's just waiting for a conduit to help release it on Earth or wherever it's needed, that supply, the galaxies or beyond to creation outside of that.
Yeah.
So it's like to wear the reality, or to bear the reality of that truth, and to live from there.
We receive the unlimited flow, unlimited supply into us, and we become unlimited supply.
Yeah, yeah. Like Father, like sons.
Yeah.
As He is, so are we.
That's the mantle of unlimited supply.
God, yeah, and I'm seeing as well that the more we receive that unlimited supply, the more we can rule in the age of Zion with ease and peace and rest, and it not be a burden. And
Yeah.
I'm seeing again the two trees. And again, this is going back to the conversation before we started, how it's all connected. And the two trees, I don't know if you all remember from a previous ascension, it's kind of connected to what you said before, Jane, how the two trees were in a cycle of life, and how the tree of life fed the other tree on the other side of the river, and it gave it everything it needed. And that was a type of unlimited supply, and the river being between it as well, and it just the strength that it got from the river. And I just see a strong connection between that and Mount Zion and this unlimited supply as well. Are you all following me? Is that clear?
Simone, I think you're getting to the same place by a different path.
Right. I feel like it's almost a reflection of, or it's an expression of the unlimited supply.
I believe so.
yeah.
Talking about the same thing with two different descriptions of it. It's the same thing.
Right.
Mm. Yeah, and I think what I'm seeing is it's in the journey. It's really key to get to this place, to learn how to arc and become a tree. And so if there are people here who have not done that, that they start there and they start going up to Zion a lot more and asking for an understanding of Zion. And then you get to this place as a result of being there, and it's almost like it becomes in your DNA. In fact, that's probably where I'm at now. I'd probably say it is in my DNA, and that's why I'm so captivated by Zion and what it means. And but I can see, unless you do that, it doesn't mean anything. Particularly if you used to just being in the courts, and that's where most of your encounters are happening, or just intimacy. You're not seeing that bigger picture of ruling and reinforcing your mountains, because we want to avoid this pattern of the moment something's not manifesting, we're just constantly going back to the mobile court and agreeing with the accuser and agreeing with the accuser, and that's not maturity. We don't have to keep doing that over and over and then it becomes a protocol. We have to mature beyond that and learn to rule and reinforce verdicts, and that's what going up Zion does. So the question I'm asking now is, how do we bring the DNA of Zion into the ecclesia? Is there a governmental act we can do to rule from Zion?
It feels.
Go ahead.
No, you go, ma'am.
Okay, thanks, Eric. If this is home, if Mount Zion is home, then I think, to me, it seems more like activating, almost like being born again. The DNA of Mount Zion is in every believer. It just needs to be brought to life.
Mm.
Just like our spirits in us
Yeah.
that we were born with needed to be brought to life.
Mm.
Like, as someone said, I forget who and where I heard it, but that the DNA of everything created is in God. God is in the DNA that creates. So likewise, then, if we're the microcosm of Him, the DNA of everything that He's created is in us too, and we are in the DNA of that. The circularity of it all. So Mount Zion has to be in the mix somewhere, and so it just needs, people just need to hear the call. They just need to have it, the spark, you, the booster jump, whatever, to activate and bring it to the remembrance, to call them home to the goodness of God. If that's the supply, if that's the thing that awakens them. But it's got to be there. It's part of our makeup. It's got to be there somewhere in everybody.
So what does your spirit feel like doing on Mount Zion? What
It,
into that?
Go ahead, Eric.
I just keep on getting the sense that the more we arc and the more we eat off the tree of life, it's just going to flow through us naturally. I really feel like y'all were saying, y'all, it's like a waterfall. I feel like it's a clothing. It's being poured on us right now to manifest Zion anyway. I feel like it's going to be like the beginning of something. I can't explain it in words. Like there's this new birthing or new growth that's been put inside us right now that we can't help but manifest Zion everywhere we go, whether it be in the spirit or in the physical plane. It feels like we're seeking deeper and deeper into the depths of Zion right now.
I also feel this flow as well. To answer your question, Jane, for me, the governmental act would be to let this flow through us onto the mountain and down the mountain. We're a gate for the flow.
Mm-hmm. Years ago, I saw a Life magazine, no, a Life National Geographic or something video of the conception of a baby. And in that mass of the zygate, the baby, the sperm and the egg, you see eventually one of the first things to grow, you see all these little heart cells, and they're all over the mass, and they're all beating in different ways in different times, but they're throughout the mass, yet like kind of like mercury balls, when they get close they just morph together. When two heart cells would get close enough, they were drawn to each other because of the common function and the design. So they're drawn together, and as these two unsynchronized cells join, there's a connection, and the beat just synchronizes. And then they get close to another cell, and that beat, as it touches, that beat synchronizes, and the heart starts to take shape. So I think, like Bill said, and Eric too, we've been sparked. The beating has happened. We've come together. The heart is starting to form. The new creation heart is starting to form. And so we just have to come down, and we'll find other heart cells will be drawn to them by his design, because he's forming his new man. And as each one touches, the activation, the synchronization will happen. And out of that heart will begin to form other organs and the rest of the body.
See, I'm kind of seeing two prongs to the thing here. I'm seeing a flow will happen for those who are really open and hungry and just surrendering any concept of what the ecclesia looks like to God. That flow will happen, and they will gradually just go up Zion, and the DNA of them will become integrated quite easily. But I'm seeing a second stream that process is not happening for, because they are struggling to let go of any concept of it being any concept. They still have quite strict views as to what the ecclesia looks like based on old models. And I actually saw, when asked about what governmental act to do, I actually saw blowing the shofar to call them up the mountain and call them up to Zion, to stop them being stuck and taking camp in a new thing that they think is the complete picture. Because I think I'm in agreement with what others are saying, that it will happen once they get up there, but at the moment they don't want to go up there because they're saying, oh, this is all overwhelming, the courts, I've got to learn this, I've got to figure this out. And they're sort of seeing it as a linear step, that they've got to learn all this and then they'll be ready for Zion. And it could be that they're actually going in at a level that they don't even necessarily have to go in at.
Do y'all feel that Zion is related to sonship more than anything? Because it feels like the other ages are being not negated, but the other ages are being sucked up into Zion.
Yeah.
That once you're in Zion, the other ages just are given to you.
Eric, to answer your question, I believe that sonship begins when you sit down on a stone on top of Mount Zion. That's the beginning of sonship. And I think that the end game of sonship is sitting on the throne in the city of Zion.
That's what I was getting ready to say, because isn't Mount Zion the mountain that's over all the other mountains?
That's correct.
And when you rule from Mount Zion, it includes all the other mountains.
That's correct. It's the one mountain that will fill the entire earth, according to Daniel chapter 2, I believe it is.
Amen.
Yeah. And that's Mount Zion now we're talking about. And all that we're talking about is Mount Zion today. But ultimately, ultimately, the city of Zion is the final, not the final destination, but it's, well, maybe you could call it that. And that's the final home there. But this step right here, we are seeing pieces of this step that even those that have gone past this point did not have any understanding of, and have not fully united with or experienced it fully. And today we are experiencing things on the top of Mount Zion here that I have never experienced before. I'm feeling a oneness and becoming a mountain, and and receiving a supply and becoming a source of supply, and all these things are happening today here on the top of Mount Zion, that I've never experienced before, even though I'm seated in the city of Zion as of a couple of days ago. This is absolutely wonderful. And Jane, yes, let's get that chauffeur out and get everybody up to the top.
Yeah, yeah, because I mean, I agree with Bill. Bill and I have been on this journey together recently about understanding the distinction between Zion, Mount Zion, and the city of Zion. And so what both of us are sensing is that this Mount Zion here, ruling from the age of rest, is not the final home. So this is only halfway up the mountain.
Mm.
And then once you've learned to look out from this place, and you've learned to see the blueprint, create or rule over that blueprint. No, you rule first, that's right. You learn to rule in the age of rest. You rule from Mount Zion in the age of rest. And then when you learn to create from Zion, you're operating in the age of new beginnings. So that's even higher. And then the final thing is you go into and understand the city of Zion and ruling from the age of Zion. So if we can understand this as kind of just the early stages of learning to really rule and reinforce verdicts other than the courts, you can begin to see the process.
And having said all that, dismiss it all of it out of your head and just be the mountain and be the supply and rule. You don't even need to know how it works or what got you there. If you're there, just be. So some folks go step by step, and they need to know the steps to get there. That's fine. If that works for you, that's great. If you're there already and you don't know the steps, that's even better. Just be. That's the whole purpose. Be.
Yeah, I like that too, Bill. That I was thinking of that earlier today about, having to. I'm not the kind of person that can get up every day and go through my gate of first love and all the other ones. It just doesn't happen, and then I feel like I feel unsuccessful. I feel like a letdown and a disappointment. That's when I have to jump on the back of the tractor and just let him get me there. When you were talking about people who are camping, Jane, at different levels, and Bill, you had mentioned if going a certain way, if going through the courts is your way to get up the mountain, that's great. It was like all of these are on ramps to the highway, to the top of Mount Zion, whatever gets us on the highway. But it's like you said, Jane, people almost like there are like toll gates on the entrance of the ramps.
I wonder if some of it too is if whatever particular path works for the person that's giving their testimony does not resonate with the person that is hearing it, because it's not their path to the top of Mount Zion.
Mm-hmm.
Then they end up camping because they think to themselves, that doesn't work for me. That doesn't resonate with me.
Or they
I don't
start to
get
go
that.
back down. Yeah.
Yeah, they're going up Mount Zion a different path, and it's a perfectly good path, and it's going to get them there. But they're stopped because their path is not the same path as the one that I took or you took or somebody else that tells them about their path.
Yeah.
Wow.
So they need to hear the voice of Holy Spirit, that
Mhm.
individual voice that knows exactly how they're made and what's going to spark them to bring them to life and draw them up to the top.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I think
Talking
once
about
we
it.
get more mature, we don't have to keep going through all the same protocols. We're there. We're at the most intimate place.
Mhm.
We don't have to even do anything with gates or whatever. We're just there, and as we live from there, and
Mhm.
Yeah, and so we mustn't get hung up that there's all this protocol we have to go through every time we have any engagement with heaven. We're just supposed to live there 24/7.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we're there. We're just there, and
It's simple.
so it's just for the newbies to give them some kind of
Yep.
understanding of what's happening and the difference between engaging that and the old way. But we should just almost see ourselves on Zion, just there, and Father's
you.
there, and we're on the seat of rest, and we're doing this in rest. We're
Mhm.
boring. The other thing I see is that because I was starting to feel a bit like I was taking too much of the responsibility on myself, and when I was ruling, and I started to feel a bit burdensome, and I knew I was doing something wrong. And so then I had to remember I have to not see myself just on the mountain. I have to see the Father and Jesus sitting on their thrones as well. And when I saw them and put them there, then I felt I was to hold their hands, and I could feel this supply coming from them. And I actually found it was under joint rule, and it was so much easier. Whereas I flipped into, I'm on the mountain and I've got a rule, and it was starting to be draining. So that really helped me. But what I do when I'm up there is just feel if there's a governmental act that's coming out of your spirit to know how to rule. Like if you were trying to rule over unlimited supply, what would you do sitting on that mountain to rule over that?
I would release the goodness of God.
Oh. So how would you?
I would probably, I could declare it. I could speak it out into the atmosphere, the nature and the ways of the goodness of God. That's what I would do, the revelation of the goodness of God, not what we might have thought it to be, but the true revelation of the goodness of God, the fullness of all of the goodness of God. I just wanted to add a few things there from further back when we were talking about sons. Is it clear to us that we are sons from the moment that we are awakened in our spirit, that we are restored sons actually, and that we, in First John, he describes the different stages of the growth of the huios, the son, from a little baby to a little child to a teenager to an adult. So really it's through talking about maturing as sons.
Mm-hmm. You're talking about coming into authority as a son, as a mature son.
Yeah. So basically,
good point. Because I think that's distinction, actually, now you've said it, Michelle, is really key. Because, it's not that a king isn't a son. A king is a son, but it's an earlier developmental phase of being a son.
Right.
Yeah, that's right. We've got to get that clearly communicated to people, so they don't think there's people out there that are sons and I'm not a son, I'm just a king and I'm a lord, and yeah.
And another thing too that you said, Jane, which I think is so key, is that, and I know this is what we've been doing, we keep coming back around to it, is that our whole goal is to not only live where we've been taken by God into heaven and into heavenly places to live there, but our whole goal is to also facilitate others to come straight there. So that they then begin to grow, as Bill said, in the individual way, intimately with God, but they're coming from a different perspective, not, oh, please God, would you come down here? But Lord, I'm here and I'm experiencing the realms of heaven as a baby Christian, as a baby son, should I say. And so we're taking the whole understanding, which is clearly put there in the scripture, so the whole understanding that Jesus, Father raised us up through Jesus and seated us in heavenly places. We don't work to get there. We were put there. So we're helping everyone forget about trying to go to heaven in the sense of we're here on earth only, and helping people recognize that they've been relocated and now they can see heaven and engage with heaven and catch the atmospheres and the nature and the relationships, and then it just begins to be exactly what you said, Jane, is that we're forming this union that forms this oneness of the New Jerusalem, the city of Zion, just being out of the city of Zion, just being released in the earth.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's what God does. God makes us whole. He sees us whole from the beginning, completely perfect from the beginning, and we grow into that. But we kind of, on earth, we set standards and we give guideposts and guidelines, and we get the impression that we're growing into it. Well, that we'll get there someday to become a son, but that's maybe what you're releasing is the reality that they're sons, the reality they're sons now. So come here.
Yeah.
That's a function of them operating outside of time too, I would say. Um, just engage. That's a function of engaging eternity and not being limited by time. And therefore, somebody coming into this new, being able to jump, if you will, what others took, a while to do.
Yeah.
Um, so when she said that, that's what came to me when Colleen was saying that.
That's definitely happening, and people are just accelerating at a warp speed compared to the prior generations.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always felt anyone who's really seeking utmost intimacy was already in heaven. They just didn't know. And so I see it's more of a just awakening to where they are positioned, not go through all this protocol to go up and up. So I do see that. I think that means I'm saying the same thing as you, Michelle.
Jane, I had
Yeah.
the experience in New Jerusalem of meeting somebody there that knew absolutely nothing about heavenly realms.
Hmm.
But they're there.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's all a question of intimacy, not religious faith that gets you there.
Mhm.
Well, and it's also kind of like he talks about with the wages. He hired one worker that was laboring all day, and then he hired someone at the end of the day, and they all got the same wages. We all have
Yeah.
access to sonship,
Yeah.
whether we've been in it for 30 years or whether we're just newly born to the reality, the reality of it, the sonship, the fullness, the unlimited supply is there.
Yeah. Yeah.
We kind of
That's
keep.
good. So apart from, like, just back to what you were saying, Michelle, about you would declare the goodness, can you think of any other act you would want to do if you didn't speak those words? What would your spirit want to do?
I would blow it out.
Ah, that's good. So like the breath, so you would breathe the breath of God onto that mountain.
Yes.
Oh, that's excellent. See, that's an example of a ruling act, using the breath of God to rule or create. So anyone else, what would you just let your spirit go free, and what would?
My original desire was to let that flow of water come out over the mountain through me. And everything we're talking about has to do with bringing life, breath and water, and that spark of faith happening and that becoming because you These are all bringing something to life.
So are you seeing a flow of water coming out of your mouth, almost like a river coming out?
I'm just seeing I'm just seeing the edge of a waterfall from the distance, looking towards the waterfall. The water's flowing towards me. It's a very large one, and it's in a horseshoe shape towards me. Not complete horseshoe, but like a semicircle kind of thing, or a third of a circle or something. And I see a large flow of water coming over that. And that's what I saw from the very beginning.
But what about from you? What's coming out
from
of
me,
you?
my sense
Yeah.
was at some point during the ascension, my sense was that this was coming into me and that it would like flush right through me and just come through me as a gate.
Oh. Yes, I mean, that's another way of ruling then, isn't it? Being a gate.
It all has to do with bringing this mountain to life.
Yeah, that's really interesting because I've never seen it being a gate sitting on Mount Zion, kind of flowing from the mountain through ourselves before, but that's good.
This is that unlimited supply coming through us.
Yeah.
As a gate.
I just remember that story of Nancy Cohen when she was taken into that satanic nightclub. Did you guys hear that one?
Oh, yes.
And so she didn't know what to say to these people. So she just thought of that mother whale calling to its baby when it was separated from it, and the frequencies of that sound and the love and the desire and everything melding together. And she just started weeping and releasing that sound. And in the midst of that, they saw, at least the high priestess saw her transfigure and saw the frequency. And within 2 or 3 years space, all the people that were there were converted to Jesus and out from the darkness. So that desire, that love, that hunger for his inheritance, for his sons, to release that.
That's good. That could actually be another form of ruling from our mountain, is we release that frequency, but it causes us to transfigure. So we transfigure on the mountain.
Yeah.
Oh, I've not seen that before.
There's something I'm going to do with this group that I've been just meeting with because they've wanted to learn more. So tomorrow we're going to start out beginning to get a feel of living body and soul and spirit. So I'm going to take a piece of a towel and I'm going to have them wrap that on their arm. And then over top of that, I'm going to, if I get time, I'll glisten it, but I'm going to take some bubble wrap and put that over top of the towel. So they get a sense of knowing body and soul in this transparent diamond-like skin of the spirit that is who we are, and then see what other revelations they get. But to know that is how we look, whether we see it or not, that is who we are.
Yeah, so almost seeing ourselves as a transfigured being all the time, because our spirit is on the outside. Yeah, to anyone else, they should see us in heaven as a transfigured being, translucent.
Well, Justin's saying he's starting to see his skin shift now. He'll see it look white. He'll see it ripple. That it's changing now.
I was seeing. At first, I was thinking about that weaved piece of garment as a cloak, but then what came to me in terms of releasing it to other people is opening. I mean, because I am a gate, I will open that door, this door of unlimited supply. I see this door on the top of Mount Zion of unlimited supply on myself first, and then open it the other way, to release the other people, like we've done with other, what do you call it, everlasting doors. But, so yeah, first I was seeing the weaved piece of garment, but then I saw the, doing that with, because I am a gate, I will open it on myself and then open it towards the other people that are coming up to me.
I have an intense desire to open that door as soon as you said that.
Yes, me too.
I want to open that
Yes.
door myself, and then I want that.
Me too.
Well, shall we do that and see what comes from Zion down the mountain to the other? See if there's anything that flows out. Have a look. But at the same time, we can blow the shofar and see ourselves as transfigured beings. And what was the other one? Oh, the breath. Breathe out. Almost like oh, this is new. Almost like we can do multiple things instead of just choosing one.
Wow.
Oh, I'm seeing this huge power on that.
Unlimited things.
Yeah.
You can multiply yourself to do more than one thing.
Yeah, of course we can. I've never seen that before. Yeah.
Oh,
God,
unlimited supply of ruling.
amen.
This is good. Ooh.
Oh, I
Our
am
Father,
so enjoying working with you folks tonight.
our Father
And
is unlimited. Whatever anyone needs, He meets
Oh,
them that way. And how many people are there? How many ways, unlimited ways, are there to manifest?
oh,
and also you can do it out of different faces around your head if you wanted to.
mm.
I'm seeing a deluge come through that door. Just a gusher of the river.
Jane, maybe you want to just lead us all in how to open the door on ourselves and then onto the mountain so that we all get together while we're doing the other things.
Okay. Thank you, Lord. So, Father, we, as gates, God, we, on Mount Zion, God, we open the door of unlimited supply upon ourselves. I'm just opening the door to myself, upon myself.
Do you feel anything? Because I can feel like a...
I did feel the anointing. I did
Yeah.
feel something on that.
I'm feeling like a sort of swirling fire coming on me.
I felt that, and then I saw this gushing of the river coming through.
I'm just getting a real sense that fire is burning off a lot of protocol, unnecessary protocol that's become unhealthy.
Thank you, Lord.
Because Zion's about simplicity and intimacy and knowing your authority. It's not about protocol.
Okay, is everybody ready to release it on those coming up the mountain?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, God, as let me see. God, we release the mantle of unlimited supply on to those coming up the mountain now, and the ability to multiply as well. In Jesus' name.
Can you see anything flowing through? I can.
I saw Bill's horseshoe. We have that Niagara Falls in Canada, so just seeing that falls view.
Trying to breathe and blow the shofar and do the other things you talked about as well.
Yes, do all that.
Ooh, wow.
Call them up and bring them to life. Become the mountain. So all those things we talked about ruling, let's do that. If you can do them all at the same time, that's even better. Just multitask yourself.
I'm getting the vibration.
Oh, this is the most awesome ruling I've ever done. Oh, that's phenomenal. I'm just seeing this huge living letters are flying out of Zion and going through that gate, through us and through into those below. And I can see that's the living letters are causing, the understanding of the DNA of Zion to be transferred.
And I'm just seeing like rainbows as well, you know.
Oh,
They're one of the universal signs of God's promise. Yeah, it draws our attention when we see rainbows. And I'm just releasing rainbows.
yeah, well, that could be the seven spirits as well. We often see them as rainbows.
Yep.
I keep saying the river washing the mountain, running down the mountain.
I keep hearing that commercial. We have it here of Skittles. They say, taste the rainbow. And just taste and see, you know, taste the goodness of God. To release that taste. To meet the hunger. Like you were saying earlier about the goodness of God. A tangible way of experiencing that goodness for the ones coming and the ones yet to come up the mountain.
Could this running of the river down the mountain be a baptism into the unlimited supply? I'm seeing it as almost like a baptism, like a dying the old and a washing.
Yeah, I'm sensing a yes on that.
That's what I'm getting too.
Yeah.
I'm seeing water going down the mountain, but I'm seeing some sense that the mountain is like building up from the bottom. There's a line across the mountain at a certain point where the mountain is larger or something, or changed, and that level is going up the mountain as the water pours down. there's something happening from the bottom up because of the water.
Oh, so almost like when you get like a rising river level.
There's
You mean
something
rising
there.
up? Yeah.
Yeah,
So the
yeah.
water covers more of the mountain.
But the mountain itself is changing in some way, in a line as it goes up.
What I was getting when you were saying that, Bill, was the word displacement.
Ah,
You know how when you pour something in, say, you
Yeah.
know, your cup is all full of soap, and you pour in the water, and eventually the soap leaves. It reminded me of what you were saying, Jane, of barriers that keep people out from coming up. It's like the water of unlimited supply, unlimited love, unlimited being as sun is pouring in and displacing everything else that's held people away, whether it's protocol, whether it's fear, whether it's not knowing where they are, who they are, but just pouring in and bringing up to the top, the surface, the reality of that unlimited supply, of that sonship, of that being it, and helping them to almost like a buoyancy, bringing them to the top of the mountain. No effort. It's all done from the seat of rest, from the place of authority,
yes.
to help lift other people up to the top.
That's it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Water levels going up and they're floating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There, He's bringing them. He's bringing them home.
Oh, wonderful.
No
Whoa,
work,
that's
just float.
Yeah.
Ooh.
No.
I see that too.
And he's doing it.
Thank you.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yes.
That's wonderful.
About
That's the
2/3
joy of the kingdom.
Ooh. Thank you, Lord.
Yeah, I'm seeing this is going to be a huge, when this understanding gets out, there's going to be a huge refreshment going on, because there have been many who've been so overwhelmed with the intense legality of the courts and what it means, and almost feeling like they're going to give up heavenly realms because it's all too much and it's not for them. They're concluding it's not for them because they can't grasp how to put together a court case, and
Yep.
I can see that there's a lot that they're going to be drawn to this, because this is going to meet where their way of doing heaven works for them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I see it's hydrating those that have been in the desert.
Oh.
Hmm.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
I was it a few days ago. I think I was in the Court of Kings. I'm not really sure. And it was all these little children, like real. I knew they were real little children that it's coming with God's pure DNA to start flowing through them. And I know we all do bloodline cleansing and DNA cleansing, but the next generation probably won't even have to do that, because we're affecting them right now by engaging with Zion right now.
Yeah. Unlimited bloodline cleansing without work.
Oh, Jesus, hallelujah.
Yeah. 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 Oh, yeah. I've seen that big time. There's definitely, that's the way we're going
And,
to, all this.
Healing.
and I was almost scared to even believe it myself, but I just, these next generation kids won't have to deal with it pretty soon.
Woo. I know that's
Yeah. I mean, that's what we can get through the order of Melchizedek. We can get that to be without genealogy. We can do that in accelerated ways. So we've just got to learn to engage Melchizedek more, not go through all these detailed protocols in the court, the mobile court.
Can we release that now from here?
I'm sensing a yes, because I think that's all part of the DNA of the Mount Zion. It's understanding.
His DNA.
Yeah, it's understanding these different levels of operation that get quicker and quicker, so that it allows you to merge these mountains and rule at a higher level on more mountains. Oh yeah, that's what I saw a couple of minutes ago when someone was speaking. I saw that's what's happening. Yeah, I saw it. People groups were merging because this allowed them to meet here on a simpler base than the courts did. The courts was turning a lot of people away, but this will allow people groups to come together and not get these streams of those who can cope with courts and those who can't. And oh, this is good. This is bringing unity.
Yeah, because we're not one in the courts. We're not one in Dr. O's teaching. We're not one
Yeah.
in whatever you choose. We're one in him and where he is.
Yeah.
Mm.
And this is so easy to grasp, you know, it feels more right. The courts felt so, there's something's not quite right with the courts. The way we put it all together, it was way too heavy.
His yoke is easy. His burden is light.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
I think because my mom, because I was trying to introduce my parents and everybody to the court system, and says, "Why you got to do all that work?" But I kept on feeling like the main reason why we were supposed to go to courts was really to embarrass the devil. That's all God wanted us to do, was to reinforce and embarrass the enemy. And that was just the whole purpose of it. It wasn't even saying blah, blah. The whole purpose of it was just to get more demons off the streets, so to speak. Well, you know what I'm saying? Well, basically, yeah, you get more devils off the street in your life, and to stop bothering other people, and just to make a more spectacle of him. That's the major purpose of the courts and all we're doing. I mean, it's much more than that, but I think that's what God's heart was in all doing all this right now. I'm part of it, I should say. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing I saw happen beautifully in the courts were people moving out from under the dominion, the falseness of the enemy, even what we're taught in religion, how big the enemy is, like you said, Eric. But also, I saw people begin to step into their identity as sons and to take authority in ways that they hadn't known they could before. And I would watch them enter the court, and they would come in like a scared child, and they would leave like a son. And that was so beautiful to see.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think all this is not about saying the courts is wrong or has no place. It's because I definitely see the courts allow people to understand about governing and rule and authority.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just about saying that even if we do operate at the court level, we can do it more simply and more governmental acts than having to sit down and write a legal document all beautifully prepared and worded. And there was getting that move of happening, which was quite overwhelming, I thought, because some were really strong at it, so they could write out beautiful court cases that were framed and beautiful, but it made it look as if unless you could do that, you couldn't really present a case. So I think if people can just see, they even just take their spirits to present a case. I mean, I do cases within seconds now. Yeah, and there's an understanding that that's how you can do that. And just like you can go on Zion, and with a second, whatever you feel your spirit wants to do, you're ruling and you're co-creating, and it takes seconds.
So release that creative, I won't say, I don't know, speed of light is the same, but God's creative light, his creativity, his ability to release that for the sons to walk in without, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you said, things can be done in an instant beyond what we can imagine, because we're one with his heart and desire and his mind, and it's just, that's an arc. When you think of a welding arc, when it connects, it's a spark, it's a release. That's what we begin to do in that instant, or less than an instant, when we connect up with his desire and release it.
Yeah, definitely.
I think as far as calling other people the shofar from the top of Mount Zion is something we still could do, to call them up. And I also am wondering if then every step after that you could blow the shofar from New Jerusalem, wherever you are, from that point on, you blow the shofar and say, come up here, is what the shofar is saying. There should be shofars just being heard from all over the top of the Mount Zion and every city and so on, until everybody ends up in the city of Zion.
When Mr. Bill was just speaking, I just felt like because we're so transdimensional and multidimensional, that even in our storehouse, or the Maseroth, we were blowing shofars in multiple places to cause God's people to come up higher in general also. Right, were you saying that?
Yeah, well, when I first started in Heavenly Realms, I saw myself at the other side of the river, and I was blowing the shofar with Joan of Arc and Jesus, and the three of us were together, and we were blowing the shofar, calling people to cross the river, and you could see this procession of people at different levels, and I had to keep blowing the shofar to keep them moving and keep them coming and not getting stuck and not taking camp. And then I had to mandate the angels around the edge to stop them getting sidetracked and going off on wrong tracks. And I still see it now. I still have to go back there, and when I feel a blockage, I go there and I blow the shofar to keep them moving over that river and crossing the Jordan. And but I actually did that, blowing that shofar, Bill, when I was doing all the others.
Okay.
So I've done that, yeah.
Good. And how about the shepherding? What I'm hearing you talk about, the angels keeping people on the path, I'm almost seeing them like sheepdogs. They're angels. They're shepherd angels.
That's right. Yeah, they are. Yeah.
And maybe we should release shepherding angels for the rest of the path, from all the way from the Jordan, where you have them already on station, all along the path to the top of this mountain.
That's good. Yes, absolutely resonating with that. So they don't get sidetracked into something else.
Yep.
Because I can see all these, they're like paths. As you're going up the mountain, there are all these paths, and you're faced with constant choice. Do I go here? Do I go there? Do I do this? And they're all unnecessary. And there's just this one path up, like in the movie Pilgrim's Progress. It's just this one path, but all these people kept going off all this path and that path, and it's like they want protocol, and it's like if something can give them protocol, that's where they feel comfortable. But if they have to be challenged to get rid of the protocol, that's really hard for them. So this challenges your ability to just rest in your authority, not in your protocol. It's tough. I found I actually wanted to go back down the mountain. When I first started doing this, I felt that this was silly. I was like, no, I want to just be in the courts. I'm quite comfortable there.
Oh my God.
Those blockages, so they won't have that happen. This is a governmental act that we're doing today. We've brought it to life. We've called them up. We've got them moving, and we put the shepherd angels to work and continually blow the shofar from the top, and they will not get stuck. They will find that narrow path, and that's the path we're talking about here, is the narrow way that Jesus talked about, going through the gate into the kingdom of God,
Yes.
taking that narrow path, and that narrow path goes up through all the ages, up to the top of Mount Zion, and then it goes up to the city of Zion. And we put those angels along that path, all along that path, as shepherd angels, and they will come and we call the shofar every time we are led to do so, wherever we are, to bring them to the place that we are currently located, the highest place we're currently located.
Excellent. So are we in agreement to mandate those angels
Amen.
along
Yeah.
that path? Excellent.
Yeah, because like those, I like that shepherd angels, also the sheepdogs. If you watch, the working sheepdogs, they don't let any sheep stray. They get
No.
them all through the gate.
Everyone.
Yes.
They nip at
Yeah.
their heels. They they know their duty. They know their business.
Mm.
I'm just asking the question now. We'll have to go back to the court of angels to find whether I can mandate them from the mountain. And I think I can mandate them from the mountain.
I agree.
Gosh, that was funny. I just wanted to rush into the courts, and I don't have to do that. I just realised.
We are
They're
a group
surrounding
of
Mount Zion, ready to go.
Yeah, we are a group of
So we just mandate those now from our mountain.
Yeah.
To guard, to protect, to allow the procession to be undistracted. We just ask you, angels, to position yourselves that you keep those travelers safe on the right narrow path. They hear the sound. They hear the sound to go up and up the mountain, and to put away distractions of the earth, jobs, family, crisis, whatever, that they will just keep going up and up, knowing that they can rule from there rather than firefight down the mountain.
I'm wondering also if instead of us having to be on top of the mountain blowing the shofar all the time, we can position angels up there to blow the shofar on a continual basis.
24/7 worship.
Absolutely, yeah, of course.
Wow.
Let's put the
That
angels to work.
that is the other thing that I've been talking and discussing with Father is the purpose of restoring David's tent. And on earth, we think it's about worship up to him. But I think this is one of the keys. It's that what they were doing was they were tapping into the angelic sound. They were releasing that on earth. Well, there's no greater sound, I don't think, in Father's heart than the angels releasing the sound of the call to come home, to come up. And so David's tent, the last time I went into my garden, I saw a tent, and I went in, and it was like an entrance into Father. And I know that's that place of meeting that he's wanted everyone to come into. And that's getting each one of his children alone and in that private place with him, so they can know him as he knows them. And they can feel that unity with him, feel his heartbeat, know their purpose.
Absolutely, totally agree with all that.
And I think like what we're doing is, I just get a sense, like I spoke earlier of the heart being formed. I just get a sense that his heart, in all of these different aspects, his heart is being, it's beating stronger, it's being released, it's being revealed, and for all of his sons to find and to return to.
You spoke, Colleen, about the heart cells coming together.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're all coming together at the top of the mountain.
Yeah.
And his heart's on that throne there. It's one heart.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. We're connecting, we're releasing what's been flowing out of his, and it's going to be beating and calling, and you know, it won't stop. It's that everlasting beat of calling his sons home.
Oh, so the shofar call is the call of the heart of God, the Father.
Everything we've done is the call of his heart, whether it's
Yeah.
putting the angels in place, everything is an aspect of it.
Mm.
Oh, so beautiful.
I'd like to, can I put forward about releasing a new fivefold for this area? If there's a fivefold in every generation, or in every age, the one, this has been germinating in me that this is how I know it's kingdom. This is how I know it's him, it's his heart. And so faith, hope, and love, the greatest of these is love. So love is the first one. Faith and hope are the other two. Joy is the strength, and peace is the umpire. And when those five are in anything, it's flowing from his throne, from his creation, his reality.
Wow, that is really beautiful.
It's not about people, it's about the reality of who he is, and the reality of what we are, and the reality of what we release.
I'm not processing. I've already got faith, hope, and love, the three together, and I'm adding in joy and peace to get the five, because I already knew of the three, but I hadn't seen the two others before, and I'm letting that become part of the faith and hope and love that was already there as a three to make it a five.
Mm.
And my heart says it's true. I'm having difficulty doing that. I think because I'm so focused on three right now and not on five. Huh.
So is this something, Colin, you were shown before? Like the combination of this five was important.
Well, yeah, when people were talking about it, I forget what chat room it was in, about every age has a fivefold ministry. Just that, to me, it boils down simpler and simpler. It's about him. It flows from him, and for me, for a long time, one of the guiding posts for me was peace. If peace was there, he's there. He's in it. I can trust that. The one I'm seeking is joy, abundant joy, because that's what he left us with, and that's got to be one of the five, because that's what's been missing in kingdom things, especially in protocol. I know some people can't embrace, or they have trouble with the courts if they're not solemn, and they're not kind of like we used to take communion, pious, and you know, that shows reverence. No, that was the Pharisees. Jesus was different than that. He had joy unspeakable, and so that's foundational kingdom to me. And then the greatest of these is love, and faith is the currency, and not our faith but his, and hope that's the one that's the one thing we can kind of hang on to. But even still, everything flows from him. The fivefold, it flows from his unlimited supply. None of those things run out, but we can't produce them. They all come from him. We can't get there with our faith alone. It's the faith of Christ. It's a work of the Holy Spirit. You know, we're not born again without all those things. We don't have faith to be born again. We just say yes. Something touches us and jumpstarts our spirit, and we find ourselves swept in, but we don't initiate it. He does. It all flows. It's all part of that supply from him. He wove it. It's part of his pattern. It's part of his plan. It's part of who he is.
Well, as we're getting near the end, we've got to really finish now. I'm just really sensing that that's a big question to be asked the next time. Because it's such a big concept that we can all seek that and form agreement on those, if that's okay. But just to finish off what we were doing before, we were just what was it?
With the angels on the top to blow the shofar.
Yes, that. Yeah. So shall we just do that together, and then I think I'll probably need to finish the recording. We just place those on the top. We just ask that you would, angels, you would continually blow that shofar for us, for heaven.
To draw them up.
The sound would come forth, the frequency would be released. The joy of Zion would be released. We honor you. We honor you for your role. Thank you that you do the role, not us constantly having to do it. Oh, excellent, guys.
I heard
okay?
him say, "I have filled that mountain with angels."
Oh, awesome.
Not
Woohoo!
just at the top, but at every place.
And I was just thinking of the angels that sounded when Jesus was born. You know, they appeared. People saw them. I just get a sense of that release as well, not just on Zion alone, but in little pockets around the earth.
Awesome. Woohoo! That was really good, guys. I think we've achieved so much today. It's just mind-blowing.
Yes, it was awesome.
Beautiful.
Thank you, guys. I'll just turn off the recording.